So yeah, I tend to roll my eyes a little bit when a business says, "Oh, we need more policy," because actually business does need to take the lead on this, and it's far easier for business to take the lead than it is for policy makers, because business tend to be subject matter experts. It's really incumbent on leadership to come forward and to collaborate with peers. It's the one area where our industry struggles is on collaboration, because it involves compromise. And actually, when you see more of that, I think we'll find the right solutions for the built environment, particularly for existing buildings.
And how in last 6 to 8 years, the conversation shifted from CSI becoming GCCA, the Cement and Concrete Association, which then broadened the horizon to say that change needs to happen at the application level and not just at manufacturing level. So how one makes, what one makes, and how it gets used is very, very important. And then where one makes. So I think all of these pieces become important. It's like saying that business leading policy or policy leading business becomes very contextual. And which is why I think all three would need to, whether it's about the finance, policy and technology, all three need to come together while not equally at all points in time for a change to sustainably happen. Otherwise, they just remain as some pilots or some conversations. So
I think that the policy shift is always going to be really slow. And we've seen that from the EU as well, where we're sort of, I think, drowning ourselves in regulation to the point of where sustainability loses innovation. I think corporates have a space to play in terms of that innovation, in terms of where we're actually taking the next agenda. But I think it always comes down to financing, and we're not actually looking at some of the other players in the market, which is individuals who hold huge portfolios. How are you sort of identifying what a large company is? Because I think that what you'll find is when you start looking at the regulation, they speak to large companies and they speak to, small to medium entities, and then there's an entire gap in between of where the regulation doesn't touch. And that amount of wealth that sits in there, the amount of impact that sits in that gap, is where we need to target next in order to make a change.
So I think when it comes to circularity, it gets much more localized, if I'm honest, in terms of the supply chain, the availability, but also in terms of the stakeholders. But a great place to start is inside the buildings, I would say. Yeah. That is a brilliant place to start, because there is a lot of embodied carbon there, and amazing stories result. You get an incredible narrative for the users, whether it's in residential or workplaces or hotels. It's amazing how much more inspirational it is if the table or the chair or the carpet or the fittings, you can tell a story about where they've come from and how they've been reused. Actually, you'll find that the customers and the users are likely to occupy that space even more. So there's a real benefit, I think, in telling the story, but also kind of sending strong demand signals out to the market.
So I guess it would be a lot around how do we build new housing which can house more people more efficiently, using so better design and policy around that.
So I think I don't have answers very explicitly, but transition plans, showing what good looks like, but really thinking about that accountability and enforcement mechanism as industry. I'm not even talking about the regulatory piece here, is going to be critical.
I'm going to go full South African, because I think we need a carbon tax. And I think everyone just should have internal carbon pricing, and then every company should have a carbon tax built in, because the reality is otherwise you're not making the right decisions. The conversation does need to change from nudges or policy or small steps of what each of us can do and stop working in silos, but each of us to just build into our general operating models that here's the tax, this is your cost of being in business, this is your business as usual now, and a 1.5 degree world is what we're living in. Therefore, in order to actually stop us from getting from the 2.7 degrees, we need to do these things now.
I think any organization that is offsetting more than 10% of their footprint is not credible. And I think that's quite a lot of organisations out there doing that at the moment.
So if you are going to offset, we need more policy and regulation around offsetting the calculation and what's going to happen. But nobody should be calling themselves, what is now a term we don't use, carbon neutral.
Yeah.
Or, carbon positive, or any type of regeneration, if they don't meaningfully have a strategy pathway, OPEX, CAPEX, towards a full decarbonisation plan.